Have you heard of the Wonder Weeks? Everybody's heard of the Wonder Weeks. There's a book, there's an app. Everybody needs to know what's going on with the Wonder Weeks. But where did they actually come from? What is the Wonder Weeks all about? My name is Christian Flotter. Today, let's talk a little bit about what's going on at that week 5 leap. Back in 1992, researchers Hetty van der Roy-Pluij and Dr. Frans Pluij developed a system. What they did is they published a paper looking at a whole bunch of infants and parents and looking at their regressive and developmental behaviors. And what they did then was they compared these ones to observational studies from a whole bunch of chimpanzees. And what they were able to find was that at particular times, infants started to go through particular patterns. Now they called these ones regressions or developmental leaps. And this is what eventually morphed into what is known as the Wonder Weeks. Now these Wonder Weeks are wonderful. We've got uses for them. We can look and see how things are coming along. But why do they actually occur? Because surely if it was a developmental thing, then wouldn't all kids go through that same developmental process? So this then raises the question as to why is it only some kids that experience unsettled behaviors or things being a little bit out of the ordinary during these developmental leaps? Let's talk about the Wonder Week 5 as an example. Now, this one, it's some people call it the Wonder Week 5, some people it's a 6-week leap, some people it's a 6-week whatever. There's a whole bunch of different names that go on, but essentially it's a developmental leap that's occurring at around 4 to 6 weeks of age. And according to the Wonder Weeks book, infants at this stage, they are undergoing enormous changes that affect their senses, metabolism, and internal organs. So essentially, they're starting to connect sensory inputs into their system. Dr. Alan Shaw actually published another paper about this very topic. Not quite as prettily presented as the Wonder Weeks app or the Wonder Weeks book, but he actually does support a lot of what Drs. Roy and Pluij are actually saying in regards to their Wonder Weeks program, especially in regards to some of the early developmental stages. And if I could paraphrase some of what he's saying here, rapid neural proliferation and cortical growth begins at around 8 weeks of age, and it's involved in socio-emotional connections. Now these are connections between mum and bub. What do we find happens at around that 4 to 6 week stage? They become a little bit clingy. At around 8 weeks of age, we start finding that babies are developing parts of their brain known as the amygdala, the anterior cingulate gyrus, and the frontal cortices. Now, these parts of our developing brain are very strongly involved in emotional regulation. What's happening at that 4 to 6 week stage? They are becoming very irritable, unsettled, and unhappy. Now, another interesting thing that was observed by Dr. Shaw in his paper was that boys tend to undergo a little bit of a difference in their development. They have a bit of a slower cortical maturation occurring, and this actually makes them a little bit more sensitive to anything that could be going on. What do we find at that 4 to 6 week stage? We find boys tend to be a little bit more affected. And now this actually, it's true with a lot of neurobehavioral kind of disorders. We find autism spectrum disorder, for instance. There is around a 4 to 1 male to female dominance. Attention deficit disorder, ADHD. Again, we're seeing a male to female preference in a ratio of around 4 to 1. So males tend to get a little bit more affected by developmental stressors. And this actually fits. Do you remember that old saying? Boys are harder when they're young, but girls are harder when they're older. This may be a reason as to why. But this also then just raises that question as to why is a normal developmental process creating an unsettled, irritable, clingy baby? Well, it actually comes down to some of the stressors that are going on in your child's life. If you as a mum are incredibly stressed during your pregnancy, that stress can actually influence baby's development. See, where a little bit of stress, a little bit of that stress hormone cortisol is actually really important for the nerves in our brain to grow to where they need to get to, too much can have a bit of a a negative effect. It's the same with everything in life. A little bit of chocolate, fantastic. Too much, hello diabetes. So we need little bits to help drive our stimulation. But if we have excessive stressors, this can disrupt that whole process going on in our development. In addition to this, we also have other factors. Now, when a baby is born, the mum is undergoing some serious changes. To get a baby out of her, it can actually take a fair bit of work. So our body produces a hormone known as relaxin. Relaxin, as the name suggests, relaxes everything. So when you are in that later stage of a pregnancy, stage 3, not stage 3, the third trimester, that's the one I'm after. When you're in your third trimester, we find there's a bit of a surge of relaxin coming through. And this helps to loosen all your joints in preparation for baby coming out. Ever noticed why you get a lot more lower back pain and your pelvis becomes a little unstable towards the end? Yeah, your body is loosening up. That same hormone goes across to baby. Now, if baby's got a little bit of a something that's not quite right, that relaxin will help to keep it moving fine. But around 5 to 6 weeks post-birth, that relaxin is starting to run out. So things start to become a little bit tight and sore. Now, this also fits with what I was talking about before. We're starting to create connections from our body to our brain. Our babies are becoming aware of what's going on in their body. Now, I used relaxin as an example for arms and legs and maybe a neck-based issue, but we've got more than just this system tied into our body. We also have a gut. Now, if I've got a bit of an unsettled gut, now this may be because we've got the wrong stuff going in, or we've had bad something else, whatever's going on, an upset gut may start to manifest at around that 4 to 6 week mark. What do we find? Around 4 to 6 is when colicky behaviors start to typically present. Now, is this because of the development, or is it merely a case of the kids now becoming aware of what's going on inside their body because they are developing? So this raises the question, is your child unsettled because they're going through a normal developmental leap? Or is it a case that they're becoming aware of something not quite right? If you've got an unsettled baby and it's going through this early stage of development, this may be an indication that there is something going on. Now, it could be the gut, it could be the musculoskeletal system. That's up for your healthcare professional to have a look and help you through this process. Otherwise, you can always ask Dr. Christian. I have to admit, look, as much as I love the Wonder Weeks, and it's been really helpful for parents to be able to know, okay, I've got something coming up, let's get ready for this one. It's great for that side of things, but I do have a couple of reservations with it. You know, it starts to create this perception of, oh, look, this could be normal, when actually they may be unsettled for a different reason. Now, this was actually something that was brought up in a couple of discussions that I have read about. In fact, one of the forefathers of this whole neurobehavioral developmental psychology, Jean Piaget, he was looking and he actually developed a whole subsystem of infant development, or not just infant, but child development. And he was saying under the years of between 0 and 2 years of age, we're expecting mainly sensory motor development. So that's essentially learning to know what your body's trying to say. And this led to these extrapolations that have developed into the Wonder Weeks. Now look, initially when the Wonder Weeks started, the research done by Ploy and Roy, that was done in 1992, and it was only done on 15 pairs of infant mothers. 15 pairs to develop this whole system. And so this is where one little criticism came about. They tried to replicate this study and they were unable to replicate the outcomes that they had with that 1992 study. But unfortunately, the replication only had 4 parent-infant pairs, so it's even less powered than the original study. Now, what's happened is over time, thankfully, a lot of the Wonder Week app users, they're starting to collate all their data. And so instead of only 15 parent pairs, we're getting much bigger numbers involved. But what this is telling us now is it's not just a smack bang on that date, okay? So it's not 5 weeks on the dot. So we're looking between 4 and 6 weeks. Now, this is something that we see so often with a lot of other infant developments, you know, like walking, crawling, rolling. We don't say, okay, my child is now 3 months old. They need to know how to roll from their front to their back. No, it doesn't work like that. We would expect them to be starting to roll between 3 and 4 months of age. And if they are outside of those ones, that's when we kind of go, okay, something's a little bit amiss here. See, this is how we can utilize these wonder weeks. We are looking for particular developmental stages to occur. And if they don't occur within those particular windows, that's when we start to go, okay, there could be something else. So love the wonder weeks, use the wonder weeks. They're great for keeping a track of where you're meant to be, but understand that development isn't painful. Other things are. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.